Hey, I'm live. Look at me go. I'm not going to lie to you folks today. I never lie to you folks. I'm always honest with you, first of all. Let me start by saying that. I hate when people say, I'm not going to lie to you. What does that mean? Does it mean you're lying to me all the rest of the time? No, I'm not lying to you the rest of the time. No, I'm not going to lie to you today about this. I'm probably as unprepared as I've ever been to do a live stream, but something's just really getting under my skin, and it's Sunday. So why not be a little more casual, a little bit more laid back than doing this grandiose prepared deal. I'm down here in South Carolina, for those of you who don't know, and I'm trying to get more involved in the Libertarian Party down here. And one of the things I'm looking forward to doing on this channel moving forward is I want to start answering questions that libertarians are getting asked when they're talking to voters. You know, all the questions. If you're a libertarian, you've been at, you know the drill, right? What about my roads, which is the one we all like to laugh about? But how are we going to pay for roads? How are we going to pay for schools, without all this taxing? And what about national defense and all these different things that government does that people think will not get done in the absence of forced taxation? So those questions are constantly being pounded into. Anybody who's a libertarian and talks about libertarianism is constantly getting hit over the head with these questions. I find it stunning personally, because at the end of the day, this is dependence on government to a level that, I don't know, it's a little scary. Like, we're incapable of running society or having a civil, country without force is, to me, very concerning. I think it's very concerning to me that so much of the country thinks this way. And it's not just Democrats and Republicans are both like, well, how will we do this? How will we do that? And it's just amazing to me. I honestly believe that if the government provided cell phones to everyone, if everybody got free cell phones from the government through taxation, that if I said we need to eliminate taxes, people would ask me, how would we get cell phones? People would ask that question. That's the message, right? That's the key is we have to look at all the things that are provided for us outside of the realm of taxation and go, look, somehow we managed to do this. Somehow we managed to get groceries onto the shelf. Somehow we managed to build grocery stores. Somehow we managed to build gas stations. Somehow we managed to put cell phones in the hands of people who have very, very low incomes, still walk around with advanced technology. We have flat screen TVs that keep getting better and cheaper, all in the absence of taxation. But yet, if you take something that we're so used to tax money or government providing for us through tax money, then we fundamentally can't conceive of a way that this could possibly exist in the absence of forced taxation. Like, nobody would be willing to pay for roads voluntarily. Who's going to do that? Or if we didn't force people to pay taxes, nobody would want to educate their kids. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of how the market works, first of all, which means that if there's a demand for something, the market is going to step in and find a way to provide it, because that's how money is made. Money is made by answering the question. They answer that question. How would we? Don't worry, you're not an entrepreneur. Nobody's going to ask you to solve that problem, but somebody else is going to step in the absence of force and figure out how to get that done, because they're going to see a benefit in providing it. And if they provide it well enough and they create a good enough value, they're going to benefit from that themselves as well. Their own self-interest is going to propel that forward. But my favorite, I think one of the things that really has been getting under my skin a lot, and I think every libertarian can share this, and this is the question I want to answer today, in terms of when you're faced with that question of, oh, a vote for Jo Jorgensen is a vote for Donald Trump. A vote for Jo Jorgensen is a vote for Joe Biden. Oh, this election's too important for us to not vote. We have to vote for, this isn't the time. Michelle Obama comes out and says, now's not the time to waste your vote on third parties. You got to stay on these are our choices and we have to deal with it. And if you're a Democrat and as a libertarian, so here's as a libertarian, I'm looking for opportunity, right? I want to win, which I think we're all pretty pragmatic. We're all pretty honest. I would love to see a Jo Jorgensen victory. I think the path is very difficult. because of what you're going to run into. But the answer to that question is actually pretty simple, but it's also, we have to answer it correctly or we're going to be stepping in it. So one of the biggest mistakes libertarians make when they are saying, when people say you can't vote for Jorgensen, you have to vote for, a vote for Jorgensen steals a vote from Trump, a vote for Biden, or a vote for Jorgensen steals a vote for Biden. The way you answer this question is incredibly important. And the biggest mistake that libertarians tend to make is that they want to say it doesn't matter because both parties are the same. I hear libertarians say that all the time. I was guilty of it. Now, just to give you a little background on myself, I've ran twice as a libertarian, once for assembly, once for state assembly and state senate. And I've made my own mistakes, but getting asked these questions over and over and over again. And then when you look back on a campaign and you go, what could I have done differently? This is probably one of the biggest mistakes I made. And that is saying that the two parties are the same. Nobody who's voting for Biden or Trump thinks that the two parties are the same. A Biden supporter, or a person so convinced, even if they don't like Biden, a person so convinced that they have to vote for somebody they don't like, right, doesn't think that the Democrats and the Republicans are the same. So by saying that, oh, the two parties are the same, you're insulting the person you're trying to reach. They're already done listening to you at that point. You come out with the Democrats, Republicans are the same. That's terrible. You've already turned that person off. They're done listening to you now. They don't see it that way. So you're immediately attacking some of their core beliefs when you say that the two parties are the same. So how do you answer that question? You have to find their fear. And right now, as a libertarian, like I said, I look for an opportunity. Where are we going to get votes from? Hey, Libertarian for Life. Thanks for jumping in the chat there. Yeah, people are very cocky. Libertarians in particular. I have friends who are Democrats, and I tell them I'd love them to come over to the party, get to know a little bit. But I was like, but just be careful sometimes engaging libertarians online, because we're not always the most approachable for some reason. But back to my trade. So I'm looking for opportunities, right? Where can we siphon votes off of? You're not going to take a MAGA guy, right? The Trump, you see them, they have the Trump shirts on, the MAGA hats, the whole bit. You're not getting those guys. You're not going to get those Trump voters to come and vote for you. You're just not. They're just like, they're 100%. They're dialed in, right? And if you think back to 2012, for example, or you can even go back all the way back to 2008, you weren't going to get Obama voters either, right? That's not your audience. You got to get people who aren't happy. Who's not happy right now? Democrats aren't happy. Most Democrats are not happy with the choice of Joe Biden, especially young Democrats, especially the progressive Democrats. They're not happy with Joe Biden. AOC supporters are not happy that Joe Biden is the guy. People who are those progressive active leftists are not happy that Joe Biden is their guy. So how do you win these people? How do you convince them to vote for Jo Jorgensen? Because their fear is, and this is the Democrat strategy, and this is the Republican strategies. This is how they do it, right? The goal is to make you so afraid of the other candidate that you have to vote. Yeah, I know he's not perfect, but geez, we can't have 4 more years of this. We can't let Trump get back in office. So what do we have to do? We've got to vote for Joe Biden. Hold your nose and vote for him. Vote blue no matter who, right? So that's where you have to start. You have to start with those guys. You have to say, look, I always open up with, I'm not a Trump supporter, but I find myself in this weird position where I have to defend Trump all the time. I say that to Democrats all the time. Look, you're putting me in a position where I have to defend a guy I don't support. Now they're a little bit more open and willing to listen to what you have to say. I'm not lying to them. I'm honest. And I'm telling them, look, I'm not a Trump supporter, but I will defend him because I don't think he's getting a fair shake in the media either. So I asked them why we can't reelect. Why is it so important? Why is it so critical that we don't reelect Trump? Why is it so important? Why would you vote for somebody you don't believe in to make sure that that person doesn't get into office? And the answer when it comes to Trump is always about racism and misogyny and what a terrible, he's basically just a terrible person. That's the reason that we have to vote for Biden because we have to get Trump out of office because he's just a terrible person. He's just horrible racist. So then I asked them to start coming up with examples. And really, if you start breaking down Trump's presidency, not from his rhetoric, if you can separate his rhetoric from his policy, the key here is to make people understand that Democrat voters understand, Democrat voters who are not happy with Biden understand, re-electing Donald Trump isn't going to be the end of the world. And as a matter of fact, it's probably not going to be that terrible. You go back to pre-COVID and you talk about his economy. Now, I know as a libertarian that Trump's economy was built on a straw, a foundation of sand, because, understanding, fractional reserve banking and monetary policy and all that stuff. We know that his economy was built on, unrealistically low interest rates, all these other things that every successful president who's had a growing economy has been built on the same thing. But from an economic perspective, there's nothing from a policy. You can look at his policy and go, his economic policies are terrible. You can't do that. That's not accurate. You look at his policies in regards to race. Has he governed as a racist? He hasn't governed as a racist. You look at the funding for historically black colleges. You look at the First Step Act. You look at, the funding for historically black colleges, the First Step Act, his opportunity zones, all these different things he's done. You look at the lowest black unemployment ever, essentially, pre-COVID, and you say, this guy didn't govern as a racist. Then they'll say, yeah, but what about child separation? The child separation on the southern border. Now, I don't want to get into this whole long defense of Trump. I encourage you to go and look at my prior video on why I'm voting for Jorgensen, because I actually broke down Trump's pros and cons, Biden's cons primarily, and why I'm voting for Jo Jorgensen. The point is that I get into a defense of Donald Trump because I want to convince Democrats that you don't have to worry about reelecting Trump. It's not going to be the end of the world. It's not going to be as bad as you think it is. They're telling you this because they know they nominated a bad candidate and they want to force you to vote for him. And like Larry Sharp said, if you want better Democrats and you want better Republicans, you get there by voting for third parties. So that's how we need to break through to people who are already dissatisfied with their party. So you can have never Trump Republicans. Why would a never Trump Republican go vote for Biden? If you're a small government conservative Republican, you wouldn't go vote for Biden. Come to the Libertarian Party and vote for Jo Jorgensen. If you're a dissatisfied Democrat and you don't like Joe Biden, don't go vote for Trump. The hashtag walk away movement is incredibly misguided. They're taking people from the Democrat Party and putting them in the Republican Party. That's not the right move. The right move is from the Democrat Party to libertarianism, from the Republican Party to libertarianism, because you want a change. So I start with that, a small defense of Donald Trump, so that Biden voters aren't terrified of the end of the world, the apocalypse happening if we end up re-electing Trump. Let's see. We can start. Hold on. I'm going to take a break here. Libertarian for Life is in. We can start a conversation that bridges the gap. I find that starting a conversation with common ground and actually listen to what someone. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying here is when we talk about common ground, that's what I mean. Look, if I'm talking to a Democrat, I know they don't like Trump. Hey, guess what? I don't like Trump either. Right? So I try and establish that some commonality there. So I'm not coming off as their enemy right away, which is, again, why I say saying that the two parties are the same is a huge, huge mistake. So I get in to that. I defend Donald Trump a little bit and I get them talking about why they're unsatisfied. We want to make them focus on why they're not happy with the person that their party nominated. There's some very good reasons for Democrats not to like Joe Biden that they have in common with libertarians. Right? He's got a terrible record. And this guy's been in, this guy's been in office for what? For how long? 40 some plus years, almost 50 years. He's been in office. Look, he's got a record you can point to and say that everything you don't like about Trump, racism, all this stuff. Here's Joe Biden's record. He can't hide from that. Why would you vote for this? If you don't want to vote for this guy because of that, then don't vote for that guy because of that. So that's the crux, is to understand that you don't have to be afraid of Trump being reelected. It's not going to be the end of the world. So this takes me to, a vote for Jo Jorgensen is essentially a vote for Donald Trump or Joe Biden. And again, remember, you're talking to a dissatisfied voter. You're talking to a person who already doesn't like the person they're voting for, right? They already don't like their candidate. So if you're talking to somebody who already doesn't like their candidate and their comeback is that a vote for Jo Jorgensen, a vote for the Libertarian is a vote for the opposing party, the thing to remember here is no, it's not a vote for the opposing party. It's a vote to improve your own party. You are not going to be happy with the nominees. I think that, look, I'm not a Barack Obama fan. I'm obviously not a Democrat, but I thought that Barack Obama from his first run, when he first came onto the scene, I was like, hey, this is a breath of fresh air. This is somebody who sounds different. I don't know that I necessarily, I voted, I was a Ron Paul guy back, I was a Ron Paul delegate. I was a Ron Paul supporter, is actively engaged in the campaign. But when Obama first came around, I thought, hey, this guy's, and then, you listen to what he's saying. It's like, okay, this is the same Democrat rhetoric. And then he governed exactly the same. That's the other side of this coin, but I'll get to that in a bit. But a vote for Jo Jorgensen being a vote for the opposing candidate makes another assumption. And that is the assumption that were I not voting for a third party candidate, that I would vote for your candidate. And that's just not true. I'm not voting for your candidate, period. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, I'm not voting for the two-party system. And as Matthew here is so kind to point out, it's a throwaway vote. I would rather throw my vote away. I would rather throw my vote away than vote for a candidate I don't believe in, because I believe principles and ethics are more important than voting for the winner. That's what matters to me. I want to walk out of that voting booth knowing that I did the right thing. I know voting for Joe Biden isn't the right thing, and I know voting for Donald Trump isn't the right thing. Just because I did the wrong thing and I won doesn't make me feel any better about myself. So if it's a throwaway vote, it's a throwaway vote. That's fine. But you weren't going to get my vote anyway. So the point is that you weren't going to get my vote. So saying it's a vote for the other party is they're making an assumption that your vote would have been for them. I'm not going to vote for something I don't believe in. Therefore, it's not a vote for the other party, because were the option, you have to vote for either Biden or Trump or stay at home, I would have just stayed at home. I wouldn't have voted. I'd join the majority of eligible voters in this country who just choose not to show up. And the funny thing, the funny thing about that is your candidate's not going to lose, whether it's Biden or whether it's Trump. Your candidate isn't going to lose because I voted for a third party candidate. Your candidate's going to lose because he wasn't good enough to motivate even a tiny percentage of the people who are staying at home to come out and vote for him. You nominated a crappy candidate. If you're voting Democrat and you're like, oh, you voted third party, that's why Biden lost. No, Biden lost because he sucked. Nobody wanted to come and vote for him. More people are going to sit at home and not vote than will vote for either candidate. So you want to win? Walk away from your party and force them to put a better candidate up there. They'll do it. They'll get better. You're literally living in a marketplace where you're rewarding bad behavior, right? It's like saying, I don't know, I can't even think of it. It's well, here, I got a great example for you. McDonald's needs to sell more healthy food. Remember that? Remember the big McDonald's needs to sell healthier food nonsense? I remember that. And then they started adding salads and all this healthy food onto their menu and all that nonsense. And guess what? Nobody was buying it. You told McDonald's you wanted them to put out a better product, but then you kept buying the same crappy products. So guess what? They took the salads and all that nonsense off the menu. Now they just sell the same crappy products they always did. That's how your vote is. You're like, you need to nominate somebody better. You need to put out better candidates. The party needs to work hard. All this nonsense. But when you walk into that voting booth and you vote for the candidate you don't like, you're lying to yourself and you're lying to them. They don't need to get any better. You're proving it with your action that the parties don't need to improve. As long as you'll keep lining up and voting for them, what would their motivation be to change? We're just going to stick with the status quo. We can march any old white guy out there and boom, you'll line up. You'll do what you're told. That's how unresponsive your party is to you. And you're just a loyalist. So to me, that's, I don't know, it's a throwaway vote. It's more than even it's a throwaway vote it's a vote for the person. It's a vote for the person I don't like. And this is the other funny part of that whole thing is it's a vote for, well, if you're a Democrat, it's a vote for Trump. And if you're a Republican, it's a vote for Biden. Poll after poll, survey after survey will show that for the most part, libertarians tend to pool votes from both sides relatively equally, because there's things that we have that appeal to Democrats, there's things that we have that appeal to Republicans. We tend to pull from both sides equally. So we're not really swaying the election in terms of, oh, the margin of victory doesn't necessarily represent purely the libertarian vote, first of all. So it's a silly thing to even say. Second, like I said, more people are just not going to vote for your person than are going to vote for them. If Biden was an inspirational, look, if Barack Obama, inspirational, aspirational type candidate was running on the Democrat ticket, you wouldn't be worried. They would just beat Trump. They would just beat him, but they're not. It's because your party nominated a crappy candidate. They're probably going to lose. I predicted Trump was going to win in 2016. He's going to win again. And I personally think it's going to be I don't think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a landslide. I think he's going to get destroyed. And so there's no scenario where Biden's not getting into the White House anyway, so you might as well do something better with your vote than to perpetuate the crappy candidates your party keeps nominating. I guess that's the way I would put it. Hillary, I mean, who's happy that Hillary got nominated? Now you got Biden. I don't see Democrats jumping up and down in the street for Joe Biden. I don't see Joe Biden shirts everywhere. You guys are going to get Trump. The Democrats are going to get crushed. Matthew, which states? Matt's asking me a good question. Let's see. Which states will Trump be flipping blue? Biden flips Florida, checkmate. Biden's not going to win Florida. He's going to lose Florida. And I don't know what states Trump's going to win or what states he's going to, but all he needs to do is do what he did last time. You realize that Trump won the election last time. So he doesn't have to flip anything red. You have to count on Biden flipping. I don't see it. But, I could be wrong. I'm not a political strategist. You know where that comes from is that Will Ferrell from Saturday Night Live, when they asked him, he was doing a Bush, and they asked him, explain your campaign strategy in one word. He looks into the camera and he goes, strategery. I say that all the time, and that screws up my deal here. So, no, I don't think. No, I do think that Trump's going to carry more states this time than last time. I do. I think it's going to be the opposite of what you think. I mean, Minnesota, California, Oregon, your deep red. I think he could flip New York personally, but New York's always been pretty deep blue. But I think Democrats are going to be very, very surprised by this election. I'll be honest with you. I don't know exactly what states he's going to flip. I'm not going to make a prediction on. I'm not 100% sure. But I think it's going to be more of a landslide election this time. I don't think it's going to be as close as it was last time. Why? It's because they set a precedent for 50% to show up to a debate. Yeah, I know, right? Matt's laughing at me because I'm saying New York. And I don't know, man. I don't know. I think people are going to be very surprised by this election. I tell you this, Trump's going to win the popular vote. Oops. I think Trump's going to win the popular vote this time. And I think that's going to surprise a lot of people. Everything that's happening in the country right now, I don't think that as many people are going to blame Donald Trump for what's going on with coronavirus as Democrats think. I don't think most Americans, unless they're incredibly biased to one political side, I don't think as many Americans blame Donald Trump for what's going on in the country. And I think more Americans think he did a good job than people assume. So I don't know that you're going to be able to hang coronavirus around his neck. I think people are going to remember how strong the economy was before coronavirus hit. I think people are going to remember that. I don't think they're going to forget. And so the idea of reverting back to let's revert to a higher corporate tax rate and go back to economic policies that were in place before Trump. I don't think that's sellable for Biden. I don't think that's a winning strategy. They can't really hit him on the economy because obviously the economy right now, like I said, I don't think he's going to get blamed for coronavirus and its impacts on the economy. And When you look at Black Lives Matter and what's going on, I think Black Lives Matter, the movement, these protests, the violence that's taking place, the mainstream media cannot talk about it all they want. These protests are violent nationwide. We're having violent protests. We have these people going into residential communities in some areas. That helps conservatives. I don't think you ride the wave of Black Lives Matter and these protests and these riots into the White House. I don't think I think when people in the country look around, they look at Biden and Harris, and they look at the Democrat ticket and they say they represent that. And people don't want that. And I think that realistically speaking, before COVID-19, there was no chance that a Democrat was going to beat Trump. Then George Floyd happened, and I think there was a window there where race became this big issue, and you had all these protests and all this momentum, and then it got ruined through the violence. The violence destroyed it. Peaceful protests create sympathy for the left. Violence creates sympathy for the right. It just does. You could look it up. Look, it's just the way it is. So I think all of this violence in the name of Black Lives Matter, and what I think that's hurting the Democrats more than it's helping them. They may think it's helping, but it's not. And so I think you're going to see a lot of people who were blue going red. I think that's why you're going to see states flip. I think you're going to see some marginal places where the turnout was a little bit more marginal, where there was maybe a lower turnout. I think you're going to see more conservatives show up to vote in a lot of places that are going to cause some states to flip. That's why I'm looking at Trump, not just winning, but I think winning dramatically. And again, I'm not a Trump guy. I'm not a Trump supporter. I don't like Donald Trump. I'm talking as a libertarian and telling Democrats that if you want a better candidate next time around and you don't like Joe Biden, then you don't have to be afraid of a Trump presidency. It's not going to be the end of the world. And if you really want to improve your own political party, the best way is to prove to them that if you nominate candidates we don't like, we will walk away from your party. That's how and then you want to get more Democrats engaged in the process. You want to get more Democrats engaged in the primary. You want to get young people to vote, then you have to walk away from to make them improve, make them earn your vote back. Neither political party is going to get better until we make them start earning our votes. I would love it if I could vote for a Republican and be a winner. Yeah, I voted for the guy who won and feel good about myself, but I can't. Nominate a real small government Republican. Nominate a Republican who's going to shrink the size of the government, who's going to cut taxes and spending, who's going to shrink our military, who's going to do conservative things, who's not going to have us involved as a global policeman. Nominate that Republican and maybe I can vote for him, but you're not. So you don't have my vote. If you're a Democrat, then nominate a progressive. You nominate somebody if you want young Democrat votes, nominate that person. And if you're not going to, then I'm going to walk away. Don't vote Libertarian, go vote Green Party, but stop being loyal to these big parties. That's the problem. That's the issue. And the only reason they keep you loyal, the only tool they have to keep you loyal to the party is fear. I'm so afraid of the other guy that I have to vote for a guy I don't like. I haven't gotten into it with a Democrat yet who has defended Joe Biden without mentioning Donald Trump, who's gone, this is the reason I am voting for Joe Biden, because I believe you can't. There's nothing that you can support on the Joe Biden side that makes you doesn't make you sound like a hypocrite. Everything about his record makes you a hypocrite based on what you say you believe if you're a Democrat. Everything about his history says, I can't vote for this guy. It's amazing. Like, I'm not a huge fan of the far left, but I look at a person that I consider on the far left, like Rose McGowan, and I look at that's a lot of courage for her to stand up to the Democrats and say, I can't support Joe Biden because I believe the accusers. I believe the woman who accused him. I believe what I hear about him. I believe he's very problematic. I believe he's got a history of sexual assault. And so she's standing by her value and not voting. Does that make her a loser? Because she's standing by her principles? No. I don't know who she's going to vote for. Maybe she's not going to vote at all. She certainly hasn't come out and endorsed anybody, but I have a hell of a lot of respect for somebody who's going to say, this is my party, and I would rather lose than vote for somebody I don't believe in. That takes honor. But hey, crawl into the booth and vote for whoever you want, I guess. I'm just saying that there's a good argument to be made against Joe Biden and 2 Democrats, where you can walk away from this party and vote for somebody else, vote for somebody you believe in, take a principled stand, and maybe you improve your own party. So that's the argument I would have. I guess that's the conversation as a libertarian I would have. Is it's not even the what have you got to lose. It's you don't have to vote. They don't own your vote. And you don't have to vote for somebody you don't believe in. And I think most Democrats don't actually believe in Joe Biden. I think they're more afraid of Donald Trump than I like Joe Biden. I think that's the reason they're going to go out and vote for him. So I wanted to just jump on here. Like I said, pretty informal. I didn't have like really anything prepared, but I wanted to come on and talk about this because I've been seeing a lot of it all day today. It's just kind of on social media. Oh, your vote for this person's a vote for blah, 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 blah. And so I want to get on and just talk about it for a little bit. I appreciate you guys coming on and sticking around here. Thanks for getting the chat active. I appreciate that. So I'll be back tomorrow. I'm thinking about trying to do 2 a day, which is a lot, but I'm thinking about trying to do a pre-recorded kind of a news cycle bit, kind of midday release, and then maybe doing live later in the day. I've been doing my lives at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern. I'm thinking about moving that to later in the day. I don't know what you guys think. That would be helpful, but I find that I'm getting a little bit more traction going live than with the pre-recorded stuff, trying to grow the channel. So if you know anybody, share the content. If you know anybody who would like it, subscribe, turn on notifications if you haven't done so. Thank you very, very much for sticking around, and we'll catch you guys next time, and hopefully you'll be back tomorrow.